A Child's Tear, the Dramatist's story. From the French of Edward Lemoine. This recording is copyrighted 2020 by St. Benedict Radio Theatre. In a Parisian green room, a new performer was complaining of nervousness. From some of her companions she received encouragement, but the majority expressed themselves after this fashion. Such tremors are incurable. As nature has formed us, bold or timid, cold or ardent, grave or gay, so we must remain. Whoever saw an ambitious man cured of his ambition, or a miser of his avarice? Some members of the company objected to the fatalism of these observations, and one said, "If you ask for a converted miser, I can show you one. Here he is. I am one." The man who said this was a popular dramatist, noted for generosity. His statement was received with ejaculations of, "Nonsense! Impossible! Do you expect us to believe that?" "Indeed," answered he, quite seriously. "I speak the truth. I was a miser, although now I trust I am such no longer. If you would care to hear it, I will relate to you the story of my conversion. It was effected by a child's tear." All present immediately crowded around him and heard from his lips the following recital. "In 1834, said the dramatist, I had just given to the theatre of the Porte Saint-Martin one of the most successful of my pieces. One day about that time 2 letters reached me by the same post. Both were from Marseille. One was from a theatrical manager, informing me that he intended bringing out my new piece there, and that he desired my presence at the final rehearsals of the drama. With regard to remuneration for my trouble, I might make my own terms in reason. The second letter, a very brief one, ran thus: Monsieur, the wife and daughter of your brother are dying of want. Some hundreds of francs would save them, and I doubt not that you will hasten to visit connections so near to you, and make arrangements for their present and future comfort." This letter bore the signature of Dr. Lambert of Marseille. As I have already told you, I was a miser in the worst sense of the word. The physician's letter, far from moving me to pity, merely renewed certain angry feelings which had formerly existed in my mind towards my sister-in-law. When, some years back, my brave sailor brother, who had since been drowned, had written to tell me of his approaching marriage with a fisherman's daughter, I, in my miserable pride and miserliness, had replied that in marrying a penniless girl I considered that he was doing a most foolish and degrading action. I was even wretch enough to advise him to break off the match, if that were still possible. My brother, like the honorable man he was, wedded the girl he loved. My sister-in-law, who was a high-spirited Breton, never forgot my letter and despised its writer. When she lost her husband and found herself in need, it was long ere she could bring herself to apply to me. But the sight of her only child wasting away from sheer want had at last broken down her pride. As the engagement at the Marseille Theatre seemed likely to prove a highly profitable one, I, as you might expect, lost no time in accepting the offer. I wrote off to the manager at once and followed my letter in person with as little delay as possible. When I arrived at the principal hotel of Marseille, I encountered there, in the act of inquiring for me, the doctor who had written on my sister-in-law's behalf. As I had not replied to his letter, the good man had said in his simplicity, "He will be here in person," and had looked for me every day. "You have lost no time, sir," said he. "Doubtless you thought, and rightly, that did you delay, death might forestall you. Ah, I am indeed glad to see you." I was completely nonplussed. My sole object in visiting Marseille had been the professional one. But how could I avow such a fact to such a man? For very shame I could not do so. Accordingly, instead of going straight to the theatre as I had intended doing, I walked away with the doctor to my sister-in-law's poor abode. It was a most wretched room. Yet the first object in it that caught my eye was a very beautiful one. Near the invalid's bed stood her little girl, with large black eyes, pretty curly hair, and a face whose expression was a pathetic combination of youthful brightness and premature sadness. At the first glance, I could have taken the lovely creature into my arms. Then I sternly repressed this alien emotion. The doctor, after he had spoken a few words to his patient, beckoned me to approach. As I did so, the poor woman tried to raise herself. The mixture of sadness and pride upon her faded countenance told me plainly how great an effort it had cost her to appeal to me. Using the strongest plea that she knew, she pointed to her child, with weak, trembling finger, and said in low tones, "See here, she will soon be alone in the world." Even this touching appeal produced, I blush to say it, no effect upon my hard heart. I answered coldly, "Why give way to such fears? You are young, you have a good physician. Why lose all hope?" A less selfish man would have added, "You have a brother-in-law also who means to do his best for you." But I said nothing of the sort. My only thought was how I might most easily escape from the threatened burden. The little girl, who had been gazing at me with wondering eyes, now came to my side and said, "Will you please sit upon the bed? Because you are too tall for me to kiss you if you stand." I sat down, and the child climbed upon my knee. Her mother's eyes were closed, and her hands were clasped together as if in prayer. Unaffrighted by my black looks, the little one threw her arms around my neck and pressed her lips to my cheek. "Will you be my papa?" said she. "I will love you so dearly. You are like Papa. He was very good. Are you good too?" My only answer was to unclasp her arms somewhat roughly from my neck and set her down upon the floor. She cast upon me a glance of mingled surprise, disappointment, and fear, and a tear rolled slowly down her cheek. Her silent sorrow worked the miracle that her pretty, fond prattle had failed to effect. As by an enchanter's wand, the ugliness of my character, the utter brutality of my conduct was revealed to me in that moment. I shuddered in horror and self-disgust, and yielded at once to my good angel. I lifted the disconsolate little maiden into my arms, and laying my hand upon her head, said, "Yes, my child, I promise to be a father to you. You shall be my dear little daughter, and I will love and take care of you always." How happy this promise made my sister-in-law, words fail me to describe. Her joyful excitement alarmed both the physician and myself. Joy, however, seldom kills. "Brother, brother," she murmured, "how my thoughts have wronged you. Forgive me." Her gratitude stung my newly awakened conscience more sharply than any reproach could have done. I hastened to change the subject to that of the sick woman's removal to a better dwelling. The doctor, with ready kindness, undertook the task of house hunting, for which I, a stranger to the place, was not so well qualified. He found for us a delightful cottage in the neighborhood of Marsac. There we three, my sister-in-law, my niece, and myself, lived for 3 months. At the end of that time, the mother passed peacefully away, leaving her child to my care with full confidence in my affection. Marie has been with me ever since. Her joys have been my joys. Her life has been my life. Do I not owe her much? That tear of hers, a precious pearl gathered by my heart, has been to it what the dewdrop of morn is to the unopened flower, expanding it for the entire day of its existence. The end.